Chamisa silence calls for concern, ED forced to extend term. Welcome to the weekly brief on HSTV News. My name is Francisca Msheche and I'll be giving you the top stories that made the headlines during the week. From the highlights of the USA, former President Donald Trump escaping an assassination attempt to our own president who has refused to extend his term of office is now being forced. Join me just after this break for these and other stories. Agenda 2030 is still alive. There are renewed attempts by Zanu PF to revive the presidential term extension of President Emmerson Mnangagwa beyond 2028, even after President Emmerson Mnangagwa himself made it clear he would wish to rest. The attempt to push Mnangagwa into a third term started in Masvingo and is now spreading like wildfire. Tanisha Gawa gives us the full story.
I don't want. No, we want. No, I don't want. No, we want. That is the new tug-of-war that is playing out in the Zanu PF succession matrix in the wake of President Emmerson Mnangagwa's announcement that he will step down and rest at the end of his term in 2028. Just after the announcement, Masvingo province led the way, calling on its leader to stay in office longer than is currently permissible at law, ostensibly because nobody in Zanu PF can replace the self-proclaimed Munumutapa.
Shefu zvavataura vari mutano vakati kana temu dzakuviri dzakama ndakuda kutodini ndakuda hangu kuti ndisire vakufamba mutsoka dzani vakati achapedzisa vision yavo handiti zvino masvingo iri kutibeti.
This opened the door to more calls within the party to keep Mnangagwa in office, with some youth in Murewa taking to the streets where they marched and sang in the cold for a few bicycles, which were eventually donated to them. Former opposition player Tendai Biti said this was all an act, a script of sorts being played out in the public just to tickle the egos of those who fancy themselves life leaders.
They actually come and say, we don't want. Then people in inverted commas say, Father, you can't go away. Then they turn around and say, but I can't ignore the people. The people have said they want me. So you're going to shriek people in the next 2 years. Him saying, I don't want, and people saying, we want. Then you say, oh, I respect the people. The people have said we want. It's a script that we have seen being played in Uganda, in Kenya, in Malawi.
He went further to call on President Mnangagwa to ditch attempts to extend his term of office, as this would lead the country into a bloodbath.
It will be the best news we would have had, but it doesn't mean it. The man is actually on a serious campaign to extend the term of office. Look at what Mnyaradzi Machacha is doing. Look at what Daniel Gari was doing in March East yesterday. Look at what his cronies are doing. So they are on a serious campaign mode to extend, to push for a third term. And with the connivance of Chabangwe and others, they control, Parliament. So this is a disaster. They want to push this country to war. They want to push this country to Armageddon. I appeal to Emmerson Mnangagwa, abandon this idea of a third term.
The president himself has said he would respect the constitution and would not in any way attempt to violate.
China kunozorora kwenda kukongresi kotsvaka anotevedza tsoka dzamunhu mutapa.
Zimbabwe has traveled this road before: the million-man marches, the interfaith rallies, the provincial endorsements, which pushed the life presidency of former President Robert Mugabe. He appeared as an unwilling victim of popularity, yet internally he enjoyed the hero worshipping and fueled it. Time will tell. Time. 2028 will be upon us and the cat will leave the bag. Tanisha Gawa, HSTV News, Harare.
Corruption has rocked food aid distribution in rural areas where councillors and other top Zanu PF leaders are accused of stealing the food for sale or to further their political interest. Minister of Agriculture Anxious Masuga has no kind words for those accused of stealing food aid at a time many households are struggling to feed their own, owing to the El Nino-induced drought. Masuga and other villagers speak on the food aid theft.
So it's targeted to those households. The headmen, superintendent, the village heads know. And this distribution committee is also the same committee that we have set up that distributes inputs. But however, in any system, there are likely to be those that will take advantage and begin to behave as in the manner that you indicated in Mashonaland and Central. We've had a few reports of social welfare officers, of inputs distribution committees, of social welfare distribution committees taking these instead of distributing them, and these are under investigation. You say that this Mashonaland Central issue is under investigation. My advice to you and to the rest of us is to allow that investigation to mature so that
A former CCC leader, Nelson Chamisa, has been challenged to come out of a self-imposed hiatus with the expectation that his return would provide leadership to the floundering opposition. Addressing a press conference, former legislator Timothy Mabau, whose political life has been marred by allegations of violence, believes only Chamisa can lead the opposition.
Advocate Nelson Chamisa has been quiet for long. He is somewhere which we don't know as his followers. I am calling upon him to come out from wherever he is and do the correct thing of uniting everyone and move forward as an opposition movement. Because there's another stage which is coming also. It's a handover, takeover of government. You cannot have a handover, takeover of government when Zanu PF is ruling and you are the opposition. Who will hand over to you if you are against Zanu PF to an extent that you don't talk to each other?
The story that Zimbabwe's economy is being hit hard by United States of America imposed sanctions has been challenged by the new U.S. ambassador to Zimbabwe, Pamela Tremont. In her first press conferences presenting her credentials to President Emerson Mnangagwa, Tremont told journalists the ball was in Mnangagwa's court. Our head of news, Blessed Mhlanga, gives us the full story.
Extending a soft, disarming smile, the new United States of America ambassador to Zimbabwe, Pamela Tremont, stepped to the podium to deliver her message to the people of Zimbabwe as she starts a diplomatic journey for the next 3 years as the top political face of Washington in Harare. Her words in diplomatic palace were simple: the United States is not your enemy. The sanctions rhetoric is a lie, and we stand by you and respect your sovereignty and success.
As ambassador, I will work with government, civil society, business, and local communities to encourage transparent democratic institutions that respect the will of the people and create broad-based economic growth. We will pursue these mutual interests while respecting Zimbabwe's sovereignty so Zimbabweans can realize a better future for themselves.
There's been a love-hate relationship between Harare and Washington over sanctions and human rights abuses, respectively. President Mnangagwa says it's Washington's fault that his people are poor, without jobs, and using a failing currency. Washington, through Tremont, has its own vision. Respect your people, fix your currency problems, and fight corruption. Then all things will fall in place. But by all means, don't blame us.
Well, as I said, we believe that human rights are very rightly enshrined in Zimbabwe's constitution, and they should be protected. Everybody deserves the same dignity and human rights across society and should be allowed to participate inclusively in the prosperity of the country. So we will continue to have those conversations with the Zimbabwean government because we don't believe that economic prosperity is possible until those rights and freedoms and protections are upheld.
For more than 3 years now, a few people have pitched a tent outside the US Embassy in Harare, demonstrating against sanctions. Most of the times, nobody even stays at the tent. They occasionally come to meet the media and at times to update the notice board outside, which records the number of days they allege to be staying in the tent outside the Yongama's embassy. Mnangagwa tells supporters, the American president, Joe Biden, hates Zimbabweans. He says this at a rally and tells them, therefore, they should not use the United States dollar to transact.
Ndakabata chakanzi zvirango zvoupfumi ngazviende, zvirango zvoupfumi zvinokonzeresa nhamo nevana vadikiwo vatinavo pano, vana vakatoenda kuchikoro vari kushayawo mari yekuti vaenderwewo mberi, saka tinoti ngazviende.
Not many pay attention to this rhetoric, especially as every time Mnangagwa himself, reaching into his pockets, he pulls out words of Biden's street lingo for US dollar. He donates the money at most rallies like confetti when it suits the leader of Zimbabwe. Business is worried over the cost of money in Zimbabwe because lines of credit are dry. Financial institutions, especially in the United States, pulled out of Zimbabwe and won't come back. This has been blamed on sanctions imposed by the United States of America against Mnangagwa's government. But the US says, our hands are clean.
Corruption is a difficult thing for us all to tackle. We handle it, we have to deal with it in the US, and I think the Zimbabwean government has expressed an interest in getting a handle on it here. But there's easy things too, like reducing the amount of bureaucracy that businesses have to go through to register a business and operate in this country. Some regulatory certainty would make it a lot easier. As part of our sanctions transition, we've been talking to US banks and financial institutions and asking them why they don't return to the Zimbabwean market, since the sanctions are not preventing them from doing that. And they rarely raise sanctions. They usually raise the cost of doing business here, the cost of...
For a country which has been dubbed an enemy of Zimbabwe, they have been pouring lots of money into the country. 5 billion United States dollars since independence. 62 million United States dollars this year alone to mitigate on the El Nino-induced drought.
The US commitment to the Zimbabwean people is clear. Since independence, the US government has provided $5 billion in humanitarian, health, and development assistance to the Zimbabwean people. $1 billion of that in the last 3 years alone. El Nino and its drought have made farming harder than usual this year. That's why yesterday I informed President Mnangagwa, and today I'm pleased to announce to you that in 2024, the US people will give $62 million to the Zimbabwean people to counter the effects of the current drought in Zimbabwe.
President Mnangagwa, who is expected to leave office in 2028, has maintained his policy as an enemy to none, a friend to all. This mostly in the public. His mantra officially has been re-engagement and engagement. At times, the actions of his government officials, his actions have not matched the words spoken at official platforms. Blessed Mhlanga, Heart and Soul TV, News and Current Affairs.
The United Kingdom Ambassador Pete Valls announced the British would be extending a $7.2 million United States dollars package to help Zimbabwe improve food security and resilience in the face of climate shocks that have rocked the country and the region at large. The UK has helped government in funding the training of 1,300 agri-tax officers in conservation agriculture method known as Fumvudza.
And so it's lovely to see some people from my Kamusha. This is, so obviously we've been here talking about the Foundations for Farming model and how it's been adopted and used and driven by government. Started back in 2011 and supported by the UK government in 2020 and again now.
President Emerson Mnangagwa, who survived his own assassination attempt when a bomb exploded at a campaign rally, expressed shock and condemned the assassination attempt on the former United States President Donald Trump, saying, open quote, "On behalf of the government and the people of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and indeed my own behalf, I wish to extend to you my heartfelt sympathy and condemnation of the cowardly attack, which also led to the loss of life," close quote, Mnangagwa wrote. American President Joe Biden also equally condemned the attack on Trump, who is running for presidency. Moving to the courts. The courts appear intent to using the law to silence opposing voices ahead of the August SADC summit. The message was clear when Magistrate Gofa denied Zanu PF Central Committee member Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu bail on grounds that if they were released, they could cause unrest ahead of the summit. As clockwork, the High Court also dismissed the appeal by CCC leader Jameson Timber and 76 others arrested on allegations of attempting to disrupt public peace. Our court reporter gives us more.
Son of Zanu PF spokesperson Christopher Muchangwa, Nifi was back in court this week to answer charges of illegal foreign currency trading and money laundering. He came flanked by co-accused persons Simbarashe Tichingana and Ellis Majachani, who together with him were granted bail at the High Court after a lengthy battle which ended up drawing political innuendos and starting up fires in Zanu PF. The matter did not kick off as the state, which fought to keep them in remand prison, was not yet ready to proceed, saying it was still finalizing investigations into the matter. He is back in court on August 28. In other cases, 3 weeks after their arrest, Zanu PF Central Committee member Mike Chimombe and his business partner Moses Mpofu were denied bail on grounds they were a flight risk and likely to interfere with state witnesses. Magistrate Marewa Gofa, who has taken a sweet time arriving at the judgment, said in the court's mind Chimombe and Mpofu would abscond if granted bail, and further they may cause public disorder ahead of a SADC summit which Zimbabwe hosts in a few weeks. Defense lawyer Ashwa Mugia and his team told the press the ruling will be challenged in the High Court.
We do not agree with that judgment, but we respect it. As lawyers, we are officers of the court. Where we are disgruntled by judgment, if you are in an inferior court, you approach another court. So our instructions from our clients were that in the case that the magistrate court denies us bail, we would appeal to the High Court.
Arrested on 26 June on allegations of fraud after the two allegedly dubbed government to give them a $88 million tender to supply goods after forging tax clearance certificates and other documents. The two allegedly received close to $7.5 million United States dollars, but only supplied goods worth $300,000 while pocketing $7.2 million United States dollars in fraud proceeds. The two were immediately remanded in custody to 7 August. In another matter, High Court Judge Justice Munamato Mtevedzi, who was supposed to deliver his ruling on the bail appeal by Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC leader Jameson Timber and 76 others, moved the ruling to 18 July, prolonging the suffering of the accused persons.
For the bail appeal hearing of Honorable Jameson Timber and 77 other appellants who were arrested and incarcerated on the 16th of June 2024. The appeal arguments proceeded well with both our lawyers and
The judge, however, granted bail to one of the accused persons, a 17-year-old boy, only if his lawyers produced documents to prove that he was still a minor.
Of course, subject to a few administrative steps we have to take, that is present the custodian and so on and so forth. But the minor has been granted bail, so that leaves us with Honorable Johnson Timber and 76 persons who are now awaiting the ruling and the decision of the court on the matter. Thank you very much.
Harare Magistrate Ruth Moyo denied Jameson Timber and 77 others bail at the magistrate court on grounds their release would undermine the rule of law and jeopardize the safety of the people and their confidence in the police. Triple C leader Jameson Timber and 79 others were arrested on 16 June on allegations of participating in an unsanctioned gathering with the intent of breaching peace. Reporting for HSTV News and Current Affairs, Constance Zuni.
The auditor's report opened a Pandora's box which has angered young people and many Zimbabweans amid concerns taxpayers' money is being looted without restraint. Parliament has already kicked into motion processes to get to the bottom of the alleged looting. However, efforts by the Public Accounts Committee hit a brick wall when those accused of defrauding government did not show up for public hearings. Our reporter Chengeto Chidi followed the story to give us more.
The Auditor General's report released last week unearthed shocking allegations of corruption and failure by vehicle suppliers who include Solution Motors, Toyota City, Duli, and Faramati to supply vehicles to government, even after having been paid in advance and in full. Reacting to the report, the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament invited the vehicle suppliers to give their own account of the allegations contained against them in the audit report. As if coordinated, none of them appeared to the committee.
Today we were supposed to meet some companies that got contracts to supply various departments of government with the cars in 2021 and 2020. They got money. Some delivered half of the cars that they were supposed to deliver, some didn't deliver at all. So we had summoned them here in Parliament to find out what transpired and when they want to make sure that the cars are restored and the value to the taxpayer is restored. But as you have seen, no one turned up. They didn't turn up. I'm just told one gave an apology.
It also emerged that one of the major suppliers, Solution Motors, is no longer in existence. It shut its doors and won't be able to give any evidence before the Charlton Wende-led committee.
The other one, no apology, and one of the companies that were supposed to meet also, Solution Motors, we've now been informed that they are now claiming that they have now closed without supplying any car. But if you see most of these companies, they are in every Auditor General's report, and one wonders why they continuously get the contracts.
A day that the nation was all waiting for turned to be nothing but just a dud. Even members of the Public Accounts Committee who were itching to have a go and win their 2 minutes of fame showed their disgruntlement over the snub.
Because if you see, the problem that we have now is, if you look into the 2023 Auditor General's report, these cases are now actually on the increase. They were better in the report that we're doing, but if you see the current one, it's...
The probe will be widened to include those who awarded the tenders, those who failed to make adequate follow-ups when the suppliers ghosted government.
That's why we wanted to get to the bottom of it. We want to also to, then after talking to these companies, call also the particular government officials that constantly give the same companies contracts where they are not delivering, because they get a contract in the Ministry of Finance, they go to the Ministry of Sports, get the same contract, go to prisons, get the same contract. So we suspect it's a syndicate of people that are well connected in government, but who are using these companies to loot public resources. So that's the reason why we called them today, but they didn't turn up.
Wende will now flex the powers of Parliament and has since issued summons compelling the car dealers to appear before them or face arrest.
So the committee has now resolved that in terms of the laws that govern our operations, we are allowed to issue summons. So that is the highest stage that we can reach as Parliament, and so we have resolved that the Clerk of Parliament must issue summons. So if they fail to respond to summons, then the law will kick on. It's no longer business as usual where we just invite a witness to come and have a discussion. But when you don't show seriousness to Parliament or content to Parliament, we are authorized to issue summons. So we've just done that. So I'm sure in a day or two, the Clerk of Parliament will be instituting the process of summoning them.
Parliament has also invited the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission to sit in during the interviews.
Yes. We have an understanding with ZAC that they are allowed to come to the committee, and they normally send their representatives to committee because these are public hearings. Only today they were not there, but sometimes you might not see them because we don't announce them, because also we don't want to intimidate the witnesses. But they are part of the system that we work with. But for this particular case where we've summoned people, the committee also resolved that I must communicate with the ZAC chair so that for that particular session, they need to be there without fail. So we'll have a discussion with Mr. Reza so that he can then send some of his officers.
Yearly, the Auditor General has produced damning reports which expose corruption. The lack of action by law enforcement agents after the reports are produced have been seriously worrying, and as a result, those called out continue on the same path. Chengetu Chidi, HSTV News, Mount Hampton.
A former Public Accounts Committee Chairman Tendai Biti added insights on the alleged plunder, saying more attention must be focused on the Ministry of Finance led by Mthuli Ncube, which he says is more than just a crime scene. Biti was speaking on Free Talk.
In short, the audit reports are missing critical information of important institutions that are supposed to be audited. Regrettably, the things that are being missed are the vehicles of corruption. So the Ministry of Finance, as I will explain later, has become the center of corruption. Its vote is not audited. The Ministry of Transport, if you go to the 2023 report, their vote is not there. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, its audit statement is not there. This has been happening since 2019 to now. Votes are being omitted, votes of the most critical departments of government. So if you don't have the Ministry of Finance, which is the most important ministry, you can't have you can't present an audit report that presents a fair and clear picture of the overall government accounts, because that is the engine room. That is the engine room. That is the heart. That is the midfield fulcrum. If you like, if in rugby it's the fly half, in American football it's the quarterback. In football is the football maestro, the main ministry, the Minister of Finance.
We turn to our weekly feature from our partners IDT, where 44 years after independence, those who suffered from the brutal cruelty of the Rhodesian forces have been forgotten, having lost relatives, family and friends and others injured in armed forces attacks as they helped the liberation war fighters. They remain forgotten and neglected by the government, whose glory is borrowed from the struggle.
In the night of May 14, 1978, a group of Zanla freedom fighters operating in the Deure Native Purchase area of Gutu district organized a pungwe at Mr. Kamungoma's homestead on the Kamungoma farm. This was during the decisive phase of the armed struggle against then Rhodesian Prime Minister Ian Smith's white minority regime. Pungwes were the main political mobilization and political consciousness methods employed by freedom fighters. Pungwes were usually punctuated by huge bonfires, loud slogans and singing. On this fateful day, however, the merrymaking didn't last long as enemy soldiers struck. Several Rhodesian soldiers who gotten wind of the meeting had laid ambush in the bush and began to fire indiscriminately in the crowd. One Zanla guerrilla and 105 civilians were killed, including Mr. Kamungoma's wife and son. Many more civilians survived, but with serious injuries. This man lost his brother to the massacre. In April this year, the government decided to honor the victims, both dead and alive, by erecting a memorial at the massacre scene where Mr. Kamungoma's household once stood. However, the deceased victims still lie in unmarked graves, and some of which are falling apart, while the surviving victims, numbering 32, are still suffering extreme poverty. To understand the living conditions of the survivors almost 5 decades after the attack, we travel to the area, which is some 117 kilometers from Masvingo City. We managed to find Patricia Mapfumo at her homestead, where she stays with her children and grandchildren. During that night, she lost her right arm and her jaw to bullet fire. At age 77, she says she has endured all kinds of suffering and wants government to help improve her life and that of other victims of the massacre.
Papungwe, musuwa 14 May. Ndakafurwapo. Saka ini ndakatovatapo. Ndaiva nomwana wangu kumusana. Ndakafurwa, ndakabereka mwana wangu kumusana. Wakanga ane 2 years ndishimumwisa. Saka musuyo ndo musu wandakamusiya ipapo. Saka andina kuzouya ndomuwana mwana wakazosara ungo chema ndokutofa. Ndakangozonzwa kuti mwana wadi wafa ndiri kuchipatara. Hana kuinda kuchipatara. Ini ndi ndakazotorwa chachifumu chavangwana. Helicopter ndokubva yadi yozouya soja aya asimisi ndiwo akazouya chifumu chavangwana. Ndakangovatapo nokuti ndakanga ndisingagoni kumuka kufamba.
Old and with one arm, she can't farm for herself, and her old wounds do not permit her to lift even not so heavy objects.
Kuyekera nongori manoroko rumwe kungotambura kokungoti ndingowana ndokuzobva tozonyoresa kulufeya ndiko kwatakazopuwa ekera compensation yacho kana kuti igone kupinza vana chikoro ndaingokwakuka saizvozvo samagore iwawo. Vana vangu havana kupinda chikoro zvakanaka. Vana vangu izvezvi vamwe vaindibetsera vakapera kufa. Saka kuti vana vangu vakasara, umwe wacho ndiye ndakakuvara naye. Umwe muyekera chimbwido wakasara ndokuzowanikwawo. Ino kutambura chaiko kungorarama nokutambura. Compensation yacho yakazouya kuti nditamburire vana. Hapana yanga singakwani. Yanga iri yokuti unoinda inotengesadza inongokwakukawo kupinza vana chikoro kungoti vangowana kuverenga varegewo kuitawo zero samai vakisina kuverenga.
Patricia's daughter Vongai Mapfumo was also at the Pungwe during that fateful night. At 11 years of age, she was a Chimbwido during the war, and like her mother Patricia, she also lost an arm and has lived a painful life ever since.
Vongai Mapfumo ndakakuvara mugore ra 1978
musi wa14 May panzvimbo inonzi Kamungoma. Yanga takakwarira iri Pungwe, ndopandakapfurwa ruoko rwangu negumbo rangu rezinhiri rakapfurwa pabvi apa, zvokuti ndingade ndakagurika ruoko negumbo zvese zvakamira zviri zvesaidhi rimwe chete. Ipapo ndakuvara, ndakaedza kuti ndisumuke ndapfurwa ruoko rwangu rwaindiremera, ndaingofamba ndichikamhina kuti ndide ndawana kutiza panguva iyoyo.
She has had 3 children of her own, but has never received the adequate psychosocial support she needs to be fully rehabilitated.
Handina mari yandinotambira haindikwaniri, haina zvainondibatsira. Iko zvino ndiri kurarama ndiri pano pamusha wavabereki. Inini chisuro changu ndinodawo nzvimbo yekugara, land. Ndoda pokugara kuti ndiwanewo pandinorarama ndichitiwo ndiwo pangu. Ndinewo vana vangu havagoni kuraramira vari pano pamusha paana sekuru. Iko zvino havana pavanogara, vanongoitawo zvemapeace work mumadhorobheni, asi zvinenge zvisinawo kukwanira kuti vangakwana kuchengetawo vana vavo vavanawo neniwo kundichengeta. Saka ina ndidawo kuti ndawanawo nzvimbo yangu yandogara ndita maproject. Tinodawo mvura. Panapa pari zvino mararamiro andiri kuita namai vangu, hatina vanotibatsira. Ndachitokumbirawo nevanotibatsira nemamira andakaita awawo kuti ndingoshandisa ruoko rumwe chete pakungodya, asi pabasa runenge ruchitondiremera. Nyama dzedu dziri kutorwadza, mavanga acho anotorwadza senguva ino yekutonhoraya. Tinotoitawo zvokutokumbirawo vane tsitsi vouya vachizoticherera.
She suffers trauma, panic attacks, and can hardly fend for herself and her children. We also managed to find Sesedzai Maharure, another survivor who currently lives in extreme poverty. After the attack, Sesedzai had several bullets removed from her body. Unlike her other counterparts who received some little compensation in the 1980s, Sesedzai has received nothing. She says she has given up trying to get compensation after several unsuccessful tries, but she maintains hope that authorities will one day remember her.
Ndakanga ndiripo pakamungoma, isu takataya nehembe dzemakomuredizi takatambuka masikati kunowacha. Saka tichisvika nehembe idzi takabva tanzwa namukoma achiti manonoka munofana kutombopuwa pane chimwe. Saka patakanga tichitora mabhegi tichienda mukati mepungu, tichienda kumanyira pungu. Saka takabva tachitaka kutondwa hondo tisatenya kutombochita mabhegi atakatinawo. Takavata usiku hwese tiripo tiri mukati meropa tichingokanya. Takazotirwa kuda kuma8 o'clock dzamasikati tichingova tichirwadziwa. Takazopuwa mahelicopter ndobva taenda kunorapwa kuhospitari kumasvingo. Harina zvoruchagona kuitawo kana kusumudza paketi kozvina ndichagona nakusakura. Ndikakwara gumbo rangu reziboshwe haridi kusumuka makuseni kana kushanda. Reziri ndakarohwa uri yose tikanobuda nenyasi kwamakumbo uri yose svika ari rakanongwena papa. Saka zvikwadi hakutambura kwacho kondirwadza. Ndakati chimbati kunyanya asiko zvino hadi makuseni nyama dzacho hadzichadi kuti ndione kuti upenyu hwacho ndokupi handina nekuti handina kana rubatsiro rwendinowana mukati mokurarama. Saka zvino zvinosvika pakundirwadza pfungwa nendangariro kuwanisa nekuti kana iri nguva yemakore eno makore achingoti anondirwadza.
The most prominent survivor perhaps is Petros Makwanya, who still walks around with a bullet lodged in his head. Like most of other survivors, Petros lives hand to mouth and has struggled all the way. Petros was shot several times in his head, and as he says, it was a miracle that he survived.
Ndakakora musoro ndebuleti musoro injari makozi andichakwanisi kana kurima kana kudi maoko ose akapfurwa useni uko kana kutaura kudai ndovata ndakangotakura ndakada musoro kudai pamusoro pacho ndebuleti yaka ndaifana kubva musoro pakati pevhuzi yaka ndotone maisira yacho andakapuwa saka andichakwanisi kana kuita sekukwanisa.
Today he walks with an unsteady gaiety and his speech is blurred. betraying the immense suffering he has endured over the past 46 years. He requires constant medical checkups, but he hardly affords them. He lives at his old homestead with his old wife and children. To make matters worse, Petros lost his elder brother Naphtali during the night of the massacre. Today, Naphtali's old grave is cracked and overgrown and does not at all befit the heroic cause for which he died. Authorities have made repeated promises to rehabilitate the graves, but nothing has materialized. Petros' son, Simpson, despite passing his O-levels, has failed to go to college because his parents could not afford it.
Nditwa Simpson Makwani. Nditwa Simpson Makwani. Mwana wa Petros Makwani. Ndishiro ude hurumende yatibatsira ndakapasa asimarikira mberi nechikoro handina. Ndinoda hurumende yapindiro yandibatsira kuti taonawo makosi nakuwanawo basa anoita kuti tiraramise vabereki vedu. Siufa takangogara kuna chatiri kuita mari dzekuti tinde mberi. Baba Petros Makwani mberi vangu vakatishaya. Ndinoda hurumende yapindira yandibatsira tasimudzirwa.
This particular year, life is tougher for survivors of the Kamungoma massacre due to drought, which has seen nothing getting into their granaries. The community itself is poor, and it remains to be seen whether these survivors will ever get to be reasonably compensated for the pain they endured for the sake of liberating their country.
We turn to the sports news with our ever-interesting Tinashe Matambo, who is suffering from the pain of a Dynamo's defeat at the hands of Highlanders. Tell us, Matambo, what's happening in the world of sport?
Thank you, Francis. Indeed, there are bruises over the past weekend with former Giants Dynamos falling to resurgent Highlanders. This is more on your favorite weekly sports update with me, Tinashe Matambo. Join me after this short break. Welcome back. I am Tinashe Matambo. We start in the world of football, where attention turns to the Kasolaga Premier Soccer League, now at a boiling point on match day 19, which promises to be more than a thrilling showdown. Top teams chasing the title in action this Saturday. Panthers focus on the top of the table clash, which is also a platinum derby, where log leaders FC Platinum was second place, the Ngezi Platinum Stars at Mandava Stadium. Madamburo, as Ngezi Platinum Stars are affectionately known, will be looking to reduce a 5-point gap to two wild pace setters. FC Platinum are looking to extend the cushion. Struggling near the FCI at home, where they host the Bikita Minerals. Relegation players that Chego to Paris travel to face ZPC Kariba. Desperate Chicken Inn will make their trip at Baobab Stadium, where they will face bottom of the block. Desperate Chicken Inn will make their trip to Baobab Stadium, where they will face bottom place the Arena Movers. On Sunday, Diamonds, still recovering from their agonizing Highlanders defeat, are on the road, hoping to get back to winning ways in their scheduled clash with Wange FC. The former Giants are looking to regain their mojo because bad results continue to haunt Dimbari even after reports that they had paid Sangoma 1,000 United States dollars on the eve of their defeat to Boso. Bulawayo spectators will be up for a treat when the Bulawayo derby explodes at Baba Fields Stadium. Highlanders will lock horns with city rivals, the Bulawayo Chiefs. Boso's new acquisition, speedy striker Neva Rauje, on loan from Chiefs just for a season, will watch the match from the stands due to conditions on loan agreement. Meanwhile, all is invited in the exam room to invigilate the students' struggle when Herentals FC face Meanwhile, all is invited in the exam room to invigilate the students' struggle when the Rangers FC travel to play Chembere Zaloza of Cape United at Rufaro Stadium, while Manika Diamonds have a home date against T1. A quick roundup into the PSL transfer mid-season window. Midfielder Divine Mindira made his way to FC Platinum after his Highlanders contract expired in June. Striker Neva Raouji will beat Highlanders on loan till season end. Angela Chivhayo, formerly with Greenfield, pen to paper a contract with Manika Diamonds. Former Cape United striker Tafazo Fire Sike was spotted training with Yada FC, the same as former Warriors defender Victor Kamuka, who has been training with the Dynamos.
You want to beef up, but at times you also need to look at the caliber of players you need. At times the resources, if permit, we can find a finisher. But now we have several strikers here, and whom I believe with time they will get to score goals, because the good thing is they are getting into position. They are creating a lot of avenues. They're creating avenues for teammates, but clinical is now the only problem left. So maybe we'll try and work on that one and make sure that these strikers, because at times we have the strikers like Elilunga, we have Sadin Urkob, they were scoring goals. So it's only that they are not getting into the right execution instinct. If they can execute well, I think we will get goals. Soon we will get goals, because the good thing, we are getting those chances.
King Nadolo remains at Yada FC despite being linked with a potential move to Scott Sakopwanya on the Division 1 side. Scotland FC, the player is confirmed. Dynamo's financial struggles is cast uncertainty over the club making any new acquisitions to boost Coach Mangombe's misfiring attack. 7 athletes will compete for honors at the Paris 2024 Olympics, set to roll to life on the 26th of this month to 11 August. Zimbabwe Olympic Committee is sure the team will bring pride to the nation, which has always been starved of success. On the spotlight is Isaac Mpofo and Rutendo Nyawara, who compete in the men's and the women's marathon respectively, while Tapiwa Makarawe and Makanaka Ishicharamba will battle for medals in the men's 200-meter dash. Makanaka is the son of President Emerson Mnangagwa's spokesperson, George Charamba. Turning to rugby, the Zimbabwe Sabres rugby team has left for Uganda to compete in the Rugby Africa Cup. Coach Pierre Bernard expressed the confidence in his team. The team will play their quarterfinal against Uganda tomorrow at Mandela National Stadium, Kampala, Uganda, at the 1500 hours, with the goal of advancing to the semi-finals and qualifying for the 2027 Rugby World Cup. The tournament will serve as the first stage for 2027 Men's Rugby World Cup qualifiers for the Africa region. It will be played following a straight knockout format from the quarter-final stage. Meanwhile, foot golf is making waves in Zimbabwe, combining the skills of soccer and golf. Foot golf, played with the soccer ball and the 52-centimeter golf hose, is gaining popularity across the country's 10 provinces. The non-contact game is suitable for all ages and skill levels, making it an attractive option for women, mature individuals and families. Football Zimbabwe is already competing internationally, with the team recently traveling to South Africa for competitions. Zimbabwe Football Association Vice President Angelica Garira, Zimbabwe Football Association Vice President Angelica Garira gave insights on the rules and regulations of the sport, and further highlighted the sport is set to become a major player in Zimbabwe's sporting scene.
Okay, foot golf is an hybrid sport, which means it's a combination of soccer and golf. But we took mainly the rules of golf, and it means we play foot golf in a golf course. But it started in Netherlands in 2008. And it was brought here in Zimbabwe by Daniel Kwengwa. From ages of 4 up to 90 plus, as long as you can still walk and kick. You just need a ball to play, and in an open space, which means in the raw areas you can play. We are playing just kids, they just need to kick the ball into the wall. You don't have to have many obstacles. So one can just play and put the ball into the wall. And then
that was all for Sports Update Time. With me, Tina Shimacha. Break care to you, Francis.
That was sport with Matambo. Now we turn to the video of the week where DJ Masomere was elected SADC chairman.
Politics. President wedu vari kugadzwa kuva SADC chair. SADC yose yakaungana ikatoisa ani leader. Sada, you got tossed and some Sada. No, one of my post of a canai, one of your canai. So Sada, didn't I do it? But I temple. While Mwakati, Urok, Modan, E.T. Woman, E.T. Oh, E.T. E.T. Sada, President, you're the Manyama. Barbu Gazua, Kuba, Sada, She, Muna August. Sada President, one of your president was about. What was Sada? Sagadeda MC was president, the MC was Sada.
This was the weekly news brief with me, Francisca Msheche. Join me next week as we package in news for you and show you why it must matter. Please don't forget to press subscribe or like so that you get unmolested and quality news briefs. From me and the crew behind the scenes, good night.
Chokwadi pasi pano taiona moto marongera